Mallory had no intention of stopping anywhere that afternoon. She only wanted to pick up her daughter from daycare, swing by the grocery store, and get home before the baby grew fussier. But when she saw the long line of cars outside the supermarket and felt her stomach twist with hunger, she decided she needed food first. Her 6-month-old son, Isaiah, was sleeping in the car seat, his small hand curled against his cheek like he was shielding himself from the world. She always laughed at that. Even in his tiny newness, he seemed to know life could be a storm. The restaurant wasn't fancy, just a mid-priced family place known for huge portions and slow service. Still, it was close, and the parking lot wasn't too crowded. Mallory lifted the car seat with both hands, adjusting her purse on her shoulder. The air was chilly, one of those early spring days that still felt like winter no matter how bright the sun tried to be. People glanced at her as she walked toward the entrance, some warm looks, some indifferent, and a few that lingered longer than they should have. She had grown used to the long stairs by now. A black woman traveling alone with a baby always drew opinions. But she ignored those. She always did. She only wanted a quiet meal and a moment to breathe. Inside, the restaurant lobby smelled like garlic butter and fried onions. A TV near the ceiling played muted sports highlights. A couple waited by the door, whispering to each other. Behind the host stand stood a young woman with a blonde ponytail so tight it pulled at the corners of her forehead. Her name tag read, Kristen, Hostess. She was tapping her nails against the counter, impatience bouncing off her like static. Mallory offered her a polite smile. "Hi, table for one and a baby." Kristen didn't smile back. Not even close. Her eyes skimmed Mallory up and down, slow and cold, like she was inspecting a stain on new clothes. "We're full," she said sharply. Mallory blinked. "There are empty tables. I can see 3 from here." "They're reserved." "It's a family restaurant," Mallory said gently. "I didn't think you took reservations." Kristen exhaled, loud and dismissively. "Ma'am, we're full. Come back later." Mallory felt irritation rise, but she kept her voice calm. "I just need a small table. It'll take me 10 minutes to eat, maybe less." Kristen didn't answer. Her phone buzzed, and she picked it up, thumbs moving quickly, as if Mallory had ceased to exist. The couple waiting ahead of her exchanged an uncomfortable glance. Still, Mallory didn't argue. She simply stepped aside, bouncing the car seat lightly, hoping Isaiah wouldn't wake. She opened her purse to get his pacifier, and that slight movement must have annoyed Kristen, because the hostess looked up with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Are you going to stand there forever?" Kristen snapped. "I'm just waiting. You asked me to come back later, so you're blocking the walkway. People need to get through." Mallory looked around. The lobby was nearly empty. No one needed to get through anything. "Okay," she said, stepping back another foot. She wasn't here to fight. She just wanted to feed both herself and her child. But the baby began to stir. Those soft, needy whimpers that warned a storm was coming. She rocked the car seat gently, whispering, "Shh, baby, it's okay." His eyelids fluttered, his lips puckered. He let out a tiny cry. It was just a baby's cry. Soft, natural, normal. But Kristen reacted like someone had fired a gun. She slammed her hand on the counter. "Can you get him to stop?" she barked. Mallory's eyes widened. "He's a baby. He's waking up. Not my problem. This is why we don't want certain people hanging around the entrance." The word certain slapped harder than any hand ever could. The couple in the waiting area gasped. Mallory swallowed. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Kristen said, stepping out from behind the host stand. "You people always act like the rules don't apply to you." Mallory hugged the car seat protectively. Isaiah whimpered louder. She rocked him gently again, her voice soft but trembling. "Shh, sweetheart, it's okay." Kristen stepped even closer, and the vibe shifted. The air thickened with hostility. "I need you to leave the lobby. Now." Mallory took a slow, careful breath. "You don't have the right to treat me like this. I'm a paying customer." Kristen rolled her eyes. "Yeah, and I'm the one who decides who sits and who doesn't." "Is that based on your seating chart or the color of my skin?" That did it. Kristen's face twisted with rage, ugly, sharp, unfiltered. Before Mallory could step back, before she could lift her free arm or even understand what was happening, Kristen's hand shot forward. She slapped her.
Not a light touch, not a shove, a full-force slap across Mallory's cheek, the sound echoing across the lobby. The baby screamed instantly, startled by the violence. Mallory staggered backward, gripping the car seat so tightly her knuckles whitened. Tears sprained her eyes, not from pain, but disbelief. "Did you just," she whispered, her voice shaking. Kristen smirked. "You got in my face. I was holding my child." "You people always play the victim," Kristen said loudly, as if performing for invisible cameras. "Maybe if you knew how to behave." Mallory didn't hear the rest. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, her body trembling. She was shocked, afraid, humiliated, and then something inside her flipped. A calmness, a clarity. She took out her phone. Kristen scoffed. "What, you gonna call your boyfriend, your cousin, your whole family?" "No," Mallory said quietly, dialing. "Then who?" She held the phone to her ear, her voice steady now, almost chilling in its control. "I'm calling the owner." Kristen laughed. "You think the owner cares about you? Good luck with that." The call rang once. Then someone picked up immediately. A deep, authoritative voice said, "Mallory, everything okay?" Kristen's smirk slowly evaporated. Because that voice belonged to the restaurant chain's regional director. And not only did he know Mallory, she was his sister-in-law. Kristen's smirk collapsed the moment she heard the voice through Mallory's phone. She froze mid-breath, her eyes darting between Mallory's shaking hands and the sleeping baby who had now burst into full wails. The restaurant lobby felt suddenly smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. "Mallory," the deep voice repeated, firmer this time. "Say something. Are you okay?" She swallowed hard, tears still burning at the corners of her eyes. "No," she managed quietly. "I'm not okay." The older couple waiting near the door took a step closer, visibly shaken. Kristen didn't move. Her face was pale now, her hands fidgeting nervously with the hem of her shirt. "What happened?" the voice demanded. Mallory inhaled shakily. "Your hostess," she began, watching Kristen flinch at the word. "She refused to seat me, even though the restaurant is half empty. She yelled at me for my baby crying. She said, 'You people!' And then," her voice cracked, "she slapped me while I was holding Isaiah." There was a long, dangerous pause on the other end of the line. "You slapped you?" he repeated, low and controlled. "Yes." Mallory heard movement on the phone, papers shuffling, a chair scraping violently against the floor. Someone in the background asked, "Where are you going?" before the line muffled as if pressed against fabric. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was no longer businesslike or composed. "I'm coming right now." Mallory blinked. "You don't have to drive here." "I'm already in my car," he said sharply. "Stay where you are, do not leave, and do not let anyone talk to you. I'll be there in 5 minutes." The call ended abruptly. Mallory lowered the phone slowly. The room was silent except for Isaiah's crying, which she tried to soothe by rocking the carrier against her leg. Her cheek still burned from the slap, stinging every time a tear rolled down it. Kristen finally spoke, but her voice was shaky and defensive. I didn't even touch you that hard. You're making this a huge deal for no reason." Mallory stared at her, stunned. "I was holding my child." "That's not my fault," Kristen snapped, panic creeping back into her tone. "You're exaggerating, and he's not going to believe you over me." The older couple stepped forward. The man, gray-haired and tall, folded his arms across his chest. "We saw everything," he said. His voice carried the weight of someone who had lived long enough not to tolerate foolishness. His wife nodded, visibly angry. "You slapped a mother with a newborn. I cannot believe what we just witnessed." Kristen's face turned crimson. "Mind your business. You don't know what she said to me." "She asked for a table," the woman shot back, "and you treated her like trash." Kristen opened her mouth again but was interrupted by the restaurant manager pushing through the double doors, alerted by the raised voices. He was a heavy-sized man with a permanent frown, an expression that suggested he hated being bothered. "What's going on out here?" he grumbled. The older woman spoke first. "Your hostess assaulted this mother." Mallory felt Kristen stiffen beside her. "That's ridiculous," Kristen snapped. "She started yelling and stepped in my space. I was defending myself." "I never raised my voice," Mallory said calmly, though her hands trembled. "I asked for a table. That's all." The manager sighed as if she were inconveniencing him. "Ma'am, if there's an issue, let's not dramatize. Why don't we just walk to my office and talk privately?" "No," Mallory said sharply, surprising even herself. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The manager's brow twitched. "Well, I can't mediate a conflict in the lobby." "I'm not asking for your mediation," she replied. "I'm waiting for the regional director. He's on his way." The manager blinked. "The regional director?" "Yes," the older man chimed in, relishing how quickly the manager's expression changed. He sounded furious. The manager looked at Kristen, then back at Mallory, then at the couple. He seemed to realize the situation was bigger than he had assumed. "Kristen, what exactly did you do?" "I didn't do anything," she insisted, but her voice cracked mid-sentence. Mallory didn't bother responding. Isaiah's crying softened into soft whimpers as she rocked the carrier against her leg. Her body still shook, her cheeks still pulsed with heat. She wasn't dramatic by nature, she hated conflict. But there was something different about this moment, something she couldn't walk away from. No mother deserved to be hit. No baby deserved to be startled awake by violence. No woman deserved to be humiliated for her race. Mallory closed her eyes briefly, grounding herself, inhaling and exhaling in slow, steady rhythms. The front doors swung open with a force that made them bang against the stopper. The regional director, a tall black man in his late 40s with a commanding presence and suit jacket barely thrown over one shoulder, stormed inside. His face was carved in fury. "Mallory," he said immediately, hurrying towards her. "Let me see you." She stepped closer. "I'm okay," she whispered, though she wasn't. He scanned her face, his jaw tightening when he saw the faint, reddening imprint of a hand on her cheek. His attention snapped to Kristen. "Which one?" he asked. The manager pointed helplessly at Kristen. The director walked forward, slowly, deliberately, like a storm gathering energy. "You slapped her," he said, not questioning, confirming. She stammered. "Sir, please, she's lying. She's barely touched me." The director's voice dropped to an icy monotone. "You slapped a mother holding her infant." Kristen took a step back. She came at me. I felt threatened." "You felt threatened by a woman holding a newborn?" he roared, his voice echoing across the lobby so loudly that servers peered out from behind the kitchen doors. The manager raised his hands. "Sir, I didn't see it happen. Maybe it wasn't that serious. I heard everything from the moment she called." He snapped without even looking at the manager. "You should have been out here before I arrived." His gaze locked onto Kristen again. "You're done." Kristen burst into tears. Please, I need this job. She's lying. She's twisting everything because she wants trouble." The director stepped closer until he stood directly in front of her. "I have EWW witnesses. I have security cameras, and I have enough complaints about your behavior to fill a binder." Then he pointed at the door. "Get out." Kristen looked around the lobby, desperate for someone to defend her. No one moved. Even her manager looked away, unwilling to help. Her face crumbled, and she fled out the door in sobs. The director finally turned back to Mallory. When he spoke again, his voice softened, heavy with guilt. "I am so sorry this happened to you." She swallowed against the tightness in her throat. "I didn't want trouble. I only wanted food." "I know," he whispered, "and you didn't deserve any of this." He turned to the manager. "Get her a private booth. Bring her whatever she wants and comp her meals for the next month." The manager nodded frantically before rushing off. Mallory exhaled shakily. Isaiah finally quieted, soothed by her touch. The director placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing calling me," he said softly. "But this isn't over. You understand that, right?" Mallory looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "Assault," he said quietly. "Racial harassment. Retaliation." He paused. "You need to decide
what you want to do next." Mallory stared at the entrance where Kristen had run out, the slap still burning across her skin, the humiliation still raw. For the first time in her life, she realized something. This wasn't just about her. It was about every woman who had been silenced, every mother who had been disrespected, every black person who had been treated like they didn't belong. She tightened her grip on the baby seat. "I know exactly what I want to do next." Her voice was steady now, strong and unshakable.
The director led Mallory toward a quiet corner booth, away from the eyes still lingering in the restaurant. Servers scrambled, clearing menus, wiping the table twice, though it was already spotless. Mallory lowered the baby seat gently onto the bench before sitting beside Isaiah, her heart still drum-rolling inside her. The adrenaline hadn't faded. It had simply shifted into something sharper, steadier, more purposeful. The director slid into the booth across from her. "I want you to breathe for a moment," he said softly, the anger lingering beneath his calm exterior. "You're safe now." She nodded, though her throat clenched with everything she'd held back. His presence settled over her like a weighted blanket, protective, unwavering. The other customers had returned to their meals, but whispers still traveled across the restaurant like ripples on water. A young server approached timidly. "Can I get you something to drink? Tea, water, juice?" "Anything," she said, eyes darting between Mallory and the director, clearly anxious not to say the wrong thing. "Hot tea, please," Mallory murmured. "With honey." The server nodded rapidly and hurried away. The director rested his elbows on the table and looked at Mallory with a gentleness that contrasted the steel in his posture earlier. "Tell me everything again," he said softly. Slowly, this time. Mallory recounted every moment. The refusal to seat her, the comments, the escalating hostility, Isaiah crying, the slap. As she spoke, the director's face hardened, each word adding weight to the fury he carried. When she finished, she let out a shaky breath, relieved yet emotionally drained. "Mallory," he said after a long silence, "you understand that we can press charges. What she did wasn't just unprofessional, it was criminal." She looked down at her hands, which were shaking faintly. "I know." "You don't have to be strong right now," he said gently. "You don't have to make a decision today." "But I already did," she whispered. He waited. She lifted her eyes slowly, the heaviness in them replaced with something new, something fierce. "If I let this go, she'll do it again. Maybe to another mother, maybe to a child, maybe worse." The director nodded slowly, pride evident in his gaze. "I'll support you, whatever you decide to pursue." The server returned with hot tea, her hands trembling slightly as she set the cup down. Mallory thanked her softly, and the girl offered a sympathetic nod before walking away. The director leaned back. "I've already called the district manager. This location will be under full review, and we'll handle Kristen according to the law." Mallory touched her cheek instinctively, still tender, still burning. "People always say they'll handle it, but then things just disappear." "Not this time," he assured her. Before she could respond, the restaurant's front doors opened again, and the older couple from earlier approached, the man with his arms crossed, the woman with her purse clutched tightly against her chest. "May we sit for a moment?" the woman asked softly. Mallory nodded, surprised but grateful. They slid into the booth beside the director. "We're so sorry for what happened," she began. "We've been coming to this restaurant for years. We've never seen something so disgraceful. We already gave our names and numbers to your manager. We're willing to testify if needed." Mallory felt tears prick her eyes again, this time not from humiliation, but from an unexpected sense of support. "Thank you," she whispered. "I really appreciate it." The woman reached across the table and placed a gentle hand over Mallory's. "Honey, you handled that with more grace than most people could ever hope to." Mallory managed a soft smile. "I didn't feel graceful. I felt scared." The woman nodded knowingly. "Grace doesn't mean you weren't scared. It means you didn't let fear decide for you." The director cleared his throat. "I'll contact both of you soon, if that's okay." "Please do," the man said firmly. They offered another warm smile to Mallory before standing. As they walked away, Mallory felt a wave of relief wash over her, proof that not every stranger in the world was cruel, that kindness still existed even in moments of ugliness. The director's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and exhaled sharply. "That was the district manager. They want to meet you." Mallory stiffened. "Meet? Today?" "If you're up for it. They want to get ahead of this before it spreads." "Before it spreads?" she echoed, confused. The director sighed lightly. "Someone posted a short video. It's already circulating online." Mallory's stomach flipped. "A video of the slap?" "No, just the aftermath. But people are already asking questions. I guarantee by tonight, someone will have posted more." Her chest tightened, unsure whether to feel relief or fear. "I didn't want to go viral," she whispered. "I know," he said gently. "But you didn't choose this. Kristen did." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And sometimes, stories like these need to be seen." Her hand drifted toward Isaiah, who was finally drifting into calm little breaths. His small chest rising and falling reminded her why she couldn't simply walk away. "Let me meet with them," she said quietly. "If it helps make sure nothing like this happens again, then yes." The director nodded, gratitude glimmering in his eyes. "I'll drive you." She shook her head. "I'm okay to drive." "You shouldn't be," he said softly. "You're shaken, and you have a baby." She hesitated, but knew he was right. "Okay," she conceded. "But first, I want to step outside. I need air." He stood with her. They walked to the parking lot, the crisp breeze brushing her cheeks. The sky was turning a warm gold, the sun dipping behind the buildings, painting the world in soft shades of amber and maroon. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. For a moment, silence wrapped around them. But not for long. A sudden shout erupted from the side of the building. Mallory opened her eyes sharply. Kristen stood near the dumpsters, mascara streaking her cheeks, her phone pressed to her ear as she cried into it. But the moment she saw Mallory come outside, her grief twisted into rage. "There she is! That's the liar! She's ruining my life!" Mallory froze. The director stepped in front of her instinctively. Kristen stormed forward, finger jabbing the air. "I hope you're proud of yourself. I'm fired. Everyone online is calling me racist because of you." "You slapped me," Mallory said, her voice calmer than she felt. "I barely touched you," Kristen screamed hysterically. "But you turned it into this huge dramatic mess. You people always—" She didn't finish, because police cruisers pulled into the parking lot. 2 officers stepped out. The director sighed, almost exhausted. District manager didn't waste any time. Kristen's face drained of color. "No, no, no, I didn't do anything. She caused this." The officers approached calmly. "Ma'am," one of them said to Kristen, "we need to talk to you about the assault reported inside." Kristen's body tensed, then erupted into a scream. "Are you serious? She's lying! She's making this up to ruin me!" Mallory watched, heart pounding but steady, as the officers gently restrained Kristen before her wild gestures escalated.
Kristen's screaming echoed across the parking lot as the officers tried to calm her, but she jerked away from them, wild with panic. The sun had fully dipped now,
leaving the sky streaked with deep purples and cool blues. The restaurant lights glowed warm against the growing dusk, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Mallory stood still, the director beside her, shielding her from Kristen's unpredictable thrashing. "Ma'am," one officer said firmly, "stop resisting. We are just detaining you for questioning." "I didn't do anything!" Kristen wailed, her voice cracking under the weight of her own desperation. "She's lying! She hit me! She had a newborn in her arms," the director snapped. "You expect anyone to believe she hit you?" Kristen's face twisted, the lie collapsing before it even formed. The officers guided her to the side of the lot, trying to settle her down. No one shouted back. No one matched her chaos. The contrast made her unraveled state seem even more out of place. Mallory held Isaiah closer, feeling the baby stir against her chest. His warmth grounded her, even as the scene around her buzzed with adrenaline. "Let's get you inside the car," the director murmured, touching her arm lightly. "You shouldn't have to witness any more of this." But Mallory shook her head. "I'm okay." Her voice was steady, though her palms were damp with lingering nerves. She didn't want to hide. Not anymore. The officers returned after a few minutes. One approached Mallory with a calm expression. "Ma'am, we need your statement so we can file the report properly, and we'll also need to photograph your cheek for documentation." Mallory nodded, trying to ignore how Kristen's muffled sobbing still reached her from across the parking lot. "Do you want to sit in the patrol car while we do this?" the officer asked. "No," she said quickly. "I'm fine. Out here." He nodded respectfully and opened his notebook. Mallory walked him through everything again, every moment, every insult, every escalation. Repeating it sent a tremor through her chest, but she pushed through. She refused to let fear silence her. Kristen's shouts had died down, replaced by wet, exhausted hiccups. The second officer returned. "Ma'am," he said to the director, "the district manager confirmed the video footage from inside. It matches her story exactly." "Good," the director replied, jaw tightening. "We're not arresting her yet, but she is being detained and will be formally questioned once backup arrives." Kristen let out another garbled scream. "This isn't fair! She ruined my life!" Mallory finally turned her head, locking eyes with the young woman whose face was flushed with misery. "You ruined your own life," Mallory said softly. Kristen froze, not because the words were harsh, but because they were true. Honest, mirror-like. Her mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. She blinked hard, as if the reality she'd been avoiding had suddenly caught up and wrapped itself around her throat. The officers guided her to the curb, where she sat slumped, shaking. One of them turned to Mallory. "You did everything right today, and we're sorry you had to deal with this." Mallory nodded. She didn't have the energy to respond. Her cheek throbbed, her arms were tired from holding Isaiah for so long, and her heart felt heavy with everything that had unfolded. The officers told her she was free to go, and that they'd be in touch soon. The director thanked them before turning to Mallory. "Let's go," he said gently. "The district manager is expecting us." Mallory followed him to his car, securing Isaiah's seat in the back. As she slid into the passenger seat, she caught one last glimpse of Kristen, head buried in her hands, body shaking. For a split second, she felt something unexpected. Pity. Not forgiveness, not sympathy, just the faint recognition of someone who had destroyed herself with the flick of her own hand. The drive to the district office was quiet at first. City lights glowed against the windshield, traffic rolling by steadily. Mallory stared out the window, her thoughts swirling like dust in the fading light. "You don't have to talk if you're tired," the director said softly. "I'm not tired, just trying to understand why someone would do that." He sighed, his eyes fixed on the road. "Some people carry hate like a habit. They don't see individuals. They only see categories." Mallory nodded slowly. "But she looked at me like I didn't belong, like I was beneath her, like I deserved it." "Because that's what racism does," he quietly said. "It convinces people their cruelty is justified." They fell into silence again. "I'm glad you called me,"
he added after a moment. Most people would have walked away. Mallory shook her head. I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't expect today to turn into all of this. I just wanted to eat. You deserve to, without being humiliated. She closed her eyes briefly. Part of me is feared this will get bigger, that people online will twist the story. They might, he honestly said, but facts matter. And there's video, witnesses, police reports. Your truth will stand. His words steadied her. When they arrived at the district office, a tall glass building with bright white lights and a revolving door, Mallory felt her pulse quicken. The director placed a reassuring hand at her back as they walked inside. The smell of polished floors and faint coffee filled the lobby. A receptionist greeted them nervously. They're waiting upstairs, sir. They took an elevator to the second floor. The doors opened to a conference hallway where the district manager, a slim woman in a navy suit, stood waiting with 3 other team members. Mallory, she said urgently, stepping forward with her hand outstretched, I'm so sorry for what you went through today. Mallory nodded, but didn't smile. She didn't owe one. Please come inside, she said, gesturing toward the conference table. The room smelled faintly of markers and lemon cleaner. A stack of papers and 2 laptops were set up facing the center seat. Mallory sat down slowly, Isaiah still dozing quietly. The district manager began, We want to take full responsibility for what happened, and we plan to take immediate action. Kristen will be terminated effective tomorrow morning and placed on a do not rehire list across all our locations. Mallory listened but didn't react. The woman continued, We also want to offer you compensation for what you experienced, not because we're trying to pay you off, but because what happened was unacceptable. Mallory lifted her gaze. I'm not here for money. We understand, she said, but accountability comes in many forms. The director cleared his throat. She's considering pressing charges. The room fell silent. The district manager nodded slowly. That is your right, and whatever you choose, we will support the legal process. Mallory folded her hands in her lap. Her heartbeat was steady now, focused. I don't care about revenge, she said quietly, but what happened today wasn't just about me. I want mandatory training for your staff, real training, not the videos people click through without watching. The managers exchanged glances. I want your employees to understand that the world is changing and that treating people with basic humanity is not optional. The district manager leaned forward. We can do that. And, Mallory added, I want a public statement acknowledging what happened. Not my name, just the truth. The room was silent for a long moment. Done, the manager finally said. We'll draft it tonight. Mallory nodded. The director leaned back, pride softening his features. You're stronger than you think, he said quietly. Mallory looked down at her sleeping baby and gently brushed a curl from her forehead. I have to be, she whispered. Outside the conference room window, the city lights shimmered like a promise, bright, unbroken, and full of consequences yet to come.
Samantha barely slept that night. The apartment was quiet except for the soft breathing of her son curled against her chest, innocent and unaware of the weight pressing down on her. She ran her fingers across his tiny hand, trying to calm herself, but her pulse refused to settle. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again. The flash of the hostess's hand, the sting, the way the restaurant had stared in stunned silence but done nothing. Every time she inhaled, she tasted the bitterness of humiliation. Every time she thought she was steady, a tremor ran through her, reminding her how deeply the moment had cut. When dawn seeped through the blinds, she rose slowly, her joints aching from tension rather than sleep. She placed her baby gently in his crib and stepped to the mirror. A faint red mark still lingered on her cheek, less visible now, but unmistakable to her. She traced it with her fingertips, not because she needed to see it, but because she needed to remember that she hadn't imagined the violence. It happened. She endured it. And today, she was going to do something about it. She dressed with purpose, choosing simple clothes, nothing dramatic, nothing that could be twisted later. She packed a small bag for her son, lifted him into the carrier on her chest, and whispered into his soft hair, "Mama's got work to do today." Her phone buzzed. It was Marcus. "Are you okay?" She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "I'm going to the police station." A minute later, her phone rang. "You're doing this alone?" Marcus asked, voice thick with sleep and worry. "I have to. I can't let this slide. If not for me, then for him," she said, looking down at her child. "I'm coming. I'll meet you there," he insisted, but she shook her head even though he couldn't see it. "No, I need to walk in there as myself, not angry, not emotional, just firm. I'll call you if I need support." After a long pause, Marcus sighed. "Okay, but please be careful." She ended the call, stepped outside, and felt the cold air bite at her skin. It grounded her, strengthened her. The bustling morning noise of the city filled her ears, cars honking, neighbors rushing to work, a distant siren, but she moved forward with a clarity she hadn't felt in months. At the police station, she hesitated only once before pushing the door open. The lobby smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. A uniformed officer at the front desk glanced up. "Morning. How can I help you?" he asked. "I need to file a report," she said, steady but firm. "I was assaulted last night while holding my infant son." The officer straightened instantly. "Assault? Come with me. We'll take your statement." She followed him to a small office with a desk, a computer, and 2 chairs. He gestured for her to sit, and when she did, he asked gently, "Are you okay to talk through it?" "Yes." She told him everything: the restaurant, the hostess, the SLAP, the other staff who looked away, the customers who froze but didn't intervene, the fear she felt while clutching her child. The officer typed steadily, glancing up to ask clarifying questions. "And this was unprovoked?" he asked. "Yes. I asked to be seated. She said something under her breath about people like me. Then she slapped me." The officer's expression darkened. "Did anyone record it?" "Yes," she said, opening her phone. "A friend was there. He sent me the video." He watched it silently, jaw tightening. When it ended, he leaned back. "This is clear assault. And if it's racially motivated, and it looks like it is, that's a serious matter." Samantha exhaled slowly, relief slipping into her lungs for the first time. Someone believed her without hesitation. "We'll open the case, contact the restaurant, and speak with the woman who hit you. And we'll need the contact information of the person who recorded this." She nodded and provided everything. Before she left, the officer looked her in the eye. "You did the right thing coming here. No one, no matter who they are, deserves to be treated like that." Outside, the sun had risen fully, warming the sidewalk. She sat on a nearby bench, letting the weight of what she'd just done settle. Her hands trembled slightly, adrenaline fading, but her chest felt lighter. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number she didn't know. She answered cautiously. "Mrs. Hayes?" a woman's voice said. "This is Detective Clarissa Monroe. I've just been assigned your case. I watched the video. We're moving quickly on this." "Already?" Samantha asked, surprised. "That video is compelling, and the fact that it happened while you were holding your child, it raises serious concerns. I'll be visiting the restaurant today. I'll update you soon." "Thank you," Samantha breathed. When she hung up, she stared at her phone for a long moment. Things were moving faster than she expected. She felt hopeful, still scared, but hopeful. She returned home, fed her son, played with him on the carpet, and tried to focus on normal things. But every so often her phone lit up with a notification, messages from people who'd seen the video Marcus posted after getting her permission. Comments poured in from strangers who were furious, supportive, heartbroken, determined to see justice. By afternoon, her phone rang again. "Mrs. Hayes?" Detective Monroe said. "I've just left the restaurant. The manager cooperated. The hostess, however, denied everything, even when I showed her the video." Samantha swallowed. "Denied? How?" "She claims you provoked her," the detective said, and Samantha felt her stomach drop. But the video shows otherwise, and several staff members privately admitted she has a history of making discriminatory remarks. "What happens now?" Samantha whispered. "She's been terminated from her job," the detective replied, "though I'm sure you already suspected that part." Samantha hadn't known, but hearing it brought no joy, only the strange heaviness that followed whenever someone faced consequences for cruelty. It wasn't satisfaction, she felt, but a tired ache. "We're proceeding with charges," the detective continued. "You will need to give a formal statement in person again later this week. I'll send you the details." After the call ended, Samantha sat motionless. Fired, charged, it was all happening. The woman who had struck her, who had looked at her as though she were less than human, was finally being held accountable. But before she could process the relief, another call came, this time from the restaurant's general manager. "Mrs. Hayes," he said nervously, "I want to apologize, deeply. What happened was unacceptable. I'm ashamed it happened under our roof." She stayed silent, listening. "I know nothing can undo what occurred," he continued, "but we've terminated the hostess and we're implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all staff. I'd also like to offer you a private meeting or a written apology if you prefer." Samantha closed her eyes, feeling a rush of emotions. "Thank you for acknowledging it," she said, "but this is bigger than an apology. I want to know that no one else will ever face that inside your restaurant. You have my word," he whispered. When the call ended, she held her baby close. Her hands were still trembling, not from fear this time, but from the enormity of the moment. For the first time since that slap, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Power.
The next morning began quietly, almost deceptively so. Samantha woke before her alarm, the sky still blue-gray outside her window. For a moment she lay still, listening to her son breathe softly beside her. The world felt strangely calm, but beneath that calm ran a current of nerves she couldn't shake. Today, everything felt heavier. Not as frightening as the night of the slap, but weightier, like she was walking into a version of her life where each step mattered a little more. Her notifications buzzed nonstop. Overnight, the video had exploded. Thousands of comments, countless shares, people from all over the country outraged by what they saw. Messages from strangers, other black mothers, fathers, students, workers, who had felt the sting of racism in ways just as subtle or just as violent. Some said the video gave them courage. Some said they cried watching it. Some simply wrote, "You're not alone." She scrolled slowly, taking it in. Part of her appreciated the support. Another part felt exposed, seen too deeply by too many eyes. But she knew it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who had walked into a place hoping for kindness and found cruelty instead. Her phone rang suddenly. Detective Monroe. "Good morning, Miss Hayes," the detective said briskly. "I have an update. The woman who assaulted you, Rachel Knox, has been officially charged. We'll need you to come in to sign a few more documents this afternoon." Samantha's stomach tightened at the name. She hadn't even known it until now. Somehow hearing it made everything feel more real, more human. "I'll be there," Samantha said. "Also," the detective added, "I should warn you, she's claiming you hit her first." "What?" Samantha breathed, shocked. "There's a video." "I know, and the video disproves her completely. But people often double down when they're cornered," Monroe said. "Don't let it rattle you. We have evidence, witnesses, you're on solid ground." After the call, she set her phone down and pressed her palms to her eyes. Accusations didn't surprise her. Not really. She'd seen it before. When the truth made some people uncomfortable, they rewrote it. They rearranged the pieces until they could stomach their own actions. But she wouldn't be intimidated. Not this time. Late morning sunlight began spilling into the apartment when someone knocked on her door. She tensed instinctively, then grabbed her son and looked through the peephole. It was Marcus. She let him in, and he stepped inside, holding 2 coffees. "I figured you didn't sleep much," he said softly, handing one to her. "You figured right," she murmured.
He sat beside her on the couch, watching her face carefully. "You okay?" "No," she admitted, "but I'm moving forward." He nodded without speaking, and for a moment they sat in silence, the kind of silence only two people sharing the same pain could sit in without feeling awkward. "I saw the news," Marcus said eventually. "People are furious. Reporters are already writing stories. Some folks are calling for a protest outside the restaurant." Samantha inhaled sharply. "A protest? I didn't ask for that." "I know, but things like this, they spark something. People relate because they've lived it." She looked down at her baby, sleeping against her chest. "I just want it to mean something, not just anger, change." "It already means something," he said. "You stood up, and now the whole city's watching." A knock interrupted them again, this time lighter, hesitant. Marcus went to the door. When he opened it, both their eyes widened. Standing there, clutching a folder and looking terrified, was a woman in her early 50s with tired eyes and wrinkled hands. "I'm sorry to bother you," the woman said, voice shaking. Are you Samantha Hayes?" "Yes," Samantha said slowly. "Who are you?" The woman swallowed hard. "I'm Evelyn. Please don't close the door. I used to work at the restaurant. I wasn't there last night, but I know Rachel. I've known her for years." She looked down ashamed. "I came to apologize. For her. For the restaurant. For not speaking up sooner." Samantha exchanged a glance with Marcus before opening the door wider. "You didn't do anything," Samantha said. "Exactly," Evelyn whispered, eyes glistening. "We all saw how she treated black customers. We all heard her comments. I should have reported her, or quit, or something. But I didn't. And now you got hurt while holding your baby." Samantha's heart softened a little as she listened. The woman's regret felt genuine, not defensive, not performative, but heavy and real. "I can be a witness if you need one," Evelyn said, holding out the folder. Inside were printed complaints, handwritten, dated, filed by customers and one or two staff members. These were ignored, but they exist, and I want you to have them. Samantha took the folder slowly, gently. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry," Evelyn whispered before turning to leave. Marcus exhaled deeply when the door closed. "Wow, that's huge." "It is," Samantha murmured, staring down at the folder that suddenly felt like a symbol of something so much bigger than paperwork. It felt like truth, proof, justice taking root. Later that afternoon, Samantha walked into the police station again, this time with her son strapped against her chest and her chin held higher. Detective Monroe greeted her warmly and guided her to a small office where she reviewed documents, gave her signature, and answered follow-up questions. Her baby babbled softly, reaching for the detective's badge, and Monroe smiled. "He's adorable and strong, just like his mother." As Samantha finished signing the last page, Monroe's phone buzzed. She checked it, eyebrows raising. "Well, it seems Ms. Knox has hired an attorney. They're claiming emotional distress, that your accusation is ruining her life." Samantha let out a bitter laugh before she could stop herself. "She slapped a mother holding her child. Her life isn't ruined. She's just facing consequences." "I agree, but it means things might get a little louder, more public, more aggressive." "I'm not backing down," Samantha said firmly. "I didn't think you would," Monroe replied with a small smile. As Samantha left the station, the crisp air hit her cheeks, and she felt a surge of determination. For weeks, she had lived quietly, carefully, shrinking herself to avoid trouble. Today, she felt none of that old fear. A line had been crossed, and she was no longer willing to shrink. On her way home, as she crossed the street, a car slowed beside her. A young black woman rolled down the window and called out, "Are you the mom from the video, the one who got slapped?" She froze, unsure what was coming, but the woman smiled warmly. "You're brave. Thank you for standing up, for all of us." Samantha felt her throat tighten, emotions swirling inside her. She nodded gratefully, and the woman drove off. When she reached home, she sank on the couch and looked at her baby, who was now awake and blinking curiously. She brushed a finger across his cheek. "You won't grow up in a world where people get away with things like that. Not if I can help." Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. S.K. Samantha stared at the screen. Rachel Knox. The woman who slapped her. The woman who denied everything. The woman who is now reaching out directly. A chill went through her. Not fear, but anticipation. The story wasn't over. Not yet.
For several minutes, Samantha just stared at the message, her pulse hammering in her ears. The letters on the screen felt sharp, like they carried weight, like they had the power to pull her back into fear if she let them. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. She wasn't the woman she had been 4 days ago. She was different now, stronger, louder, aware of her worth in a way she hadn't been forced to confront before. But still, Rachel contacting her directly? She set her phone on the table and paced the living room. Her son lay on a blanket nearby, kicking his small feet in the air, happily unaware of the storm brewing outside. Samantha looked at him, and a protective fire rose inside her. "What does she want?" Samantha whispered to herself. Her phone buzzed again. "Please, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand." Samantha felt her jaw tighten. Out of hand? After what Rachel did? After the lies, the denial, the accusations? A knock sounded at her door, making her jump. She stiffened immediately, heart thudding. She stepped to the peephole slowly. It was Marcus. She pulled the door open, relief washing over her. He stepped inside and took one look at her face. "What happened?" he asked. "She texted me," Samantha said, handing him her phone. He read the message and his eyes narrowed. "She shouldn't be contacting you. She has charges against her. Her lawyer should know better." Samantha wrapped her arms around herself. "What do I do?" "You block her, and you tell Detective Monroe. This is intimidation or damage control. Either way, you're not engaging." Before she could respond, her phone rang again. This time it wasn't Rachel. It was an unknown number. Samantha hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Miss Hayes? This is Anthony Breyer. I'm representing Ms. Knox. I believe she reached out to you moments ago. Please disregard that. It wasn't appropriate." Samantha's eyebrows shot up. "She texted me and her lawyer calls right after?" "I didn't respond," Samantha said calmly. "Good. My client is overwhelmed. She fears for her reputation. The online backlash, it's significant." Samantha closed her eyes for a brief moment. Of course, the consequences were suddenly too heavy for the woman who had thrown the slap like it cost nothing. "With respect," Samantha said, "her fear isn't my responsibility." "I understand," Breyer said. "Still, we're hoping to resolve this without escalation." Samantha almost laughed. "Escalation? She assaulted me while I was holding my child." The attorney exhaled slowly, as if bracing himself. "Miss Hayes, Rachel wants to apologize. Privately. Off the record." Samantha's froze. Marcus's eyebrows flew up. He shook his head furiously. "No," he mouthed. "No," Samantha repeated aloud. "If she wants to apologize, she can do it in court." Breyer hesitated. "She's afraid of that." "She should be," Samantha said. "She's not the only one who's afraid. I was terrified when she hit me." Silence stretched across the line. Finally, Breyer sighed. "I'll inform her. Thank you for your time." He hung up. Samantha's body shook, not with fear, but with adrenaline. Marcus placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing. You owe her nothing." But even as he spoke, something uneasy settled in Samantha's chest. Not guilt, not fear, something else, something like a warning. Hours passed. Afternoon faded to a glowing orange evening, and Samantha focused on caring for her son, trying to drown out thoughts of Rachel. But the tension still clung to her like humidity in the air. As she rocked her baby to sleep, her phone pinged again. She tensed instantly. But it wasn't Rachel. It was Detective Monroe. "Are you home? I need to speak with you." "I'm outside." Samantha's breath caught. She hurried to the window. A police SUV sat at the curb. She opened the door before Monroe even knocked. "Detective, is something wrong?" Monroe stepped inside, her expression tired and serious. Nothing dangerous, but you need to know what's happening. Her heart pounded all over again. What is it? The detective took a seat. Rachel Knox and her attorney filed a counter-complaint. They're claiming you fabricated the story, that you edited the video to slander her, and that you orchestrated the public mob against her. Samantha stared at her in disbelief. What? Marcus stood stunned, his mouth slightly open. But the video... I know, Monroe said. The video clearly shows she slapped you. The footage is unedited, but people pull desperate moves when they feel trapped. Her complaint won't go far. The evidence is against her. But still, Samantha whispered, voice trembling, she's trying to flip it on me. Yes, Monroe said honestly, but you're protected. You have the truth. Witnesses, customer complaints. This is noise, not danger. Samantha sat on the couch slowly, her knees weak. Why is she doing this? Monroe hesitated for a long moment, folding her hands together. Because some people would rather rewrite reality than face accountability. And because she's panicking. Her life is changing fast. Not because of you, but because of her own choices. Samantha looked at her baby, now asleep, his small fingers curled. A fierce warmth rose in her chest. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. But she was tired. Exhausted. What happens now? She asked quietly. We continue the investigation. Nothing changes on your end. But there's something else. Samantha's heart skipped. What? Monroe took a deep breath. Rachel's mother called the station this afternoon. She wanted to speak with you. Samantha blinked in confusion. Her mother? Yes, Monroe said, her tone softening slightly. She's elderly. She sounded distressed. She said she raised her daughter better than this, and she wants to apologize to you on her behalf. Samantha's throat tightened. She didn't know how to feel. Sympathy? Anger? Something in between. Did you talk to her? Samantha asked. A little, Monroe said. She sounded sincere. But I wanted your permission before I give her your number. Samantha swallowed hard. A part of her felt compassion. Another part felt guarded. I don't know, she whispered. I don't want to be manipulated. You won't be, Monroe said. You're stronger than you think. Just take your time. Tell me when you're ready. Samantha nodded. After Monroe left, the apartment felt too quiet, too small for all the emotions swirling inside. Marcus sank onto the couch. This is getting intense. Samantha sat beside him, running a hand over her face. She's fighting dirty. But you're winning, Marcus said gently. Not just legally, morally. She leaned back, exhaustion washing over her. I don't want revenge. I just want accountability. And you'll get it, Marcus said. Silence settled again between them, comfortable this time, until Samantha's phone lit up one more time. A new message from a number she didn't recognize. This one was a single line. I need to see you, please, before it's too late. R.K's mother. Samantha's breath caught. The story was shifting again, and she had no idea what was coming next.
Samantha stared at the message, her breath caught halfway in her throat. The room suddenly felt smaller, quieter, as if every sound in the apartment had leaned in to listen. She read the text again and again. I need to see you, please, before it's too late. R.K's mother. What did before it's too late mean? Too late for what? Too late for whom? Her pulse pounded under her skin. Marcus leaned forward, reading the message over her shoulder. His eyebrows drew together immediately. No, he said firmly. Absolutely not. You're not meeting her. Samantha held her phone tighter. But what if she's telling the truth? What if she's trying to apologize or tell me something important? And what if it's a setup? Marcus shot back. Rachel is already trying to twist the story. Her mother could be part of that. Samantha shook her head. Detective Monroe said the mother sounded sincere. People can sound sincere and still lie, Marcus insisted. You're vulnerable right now. You're a mother with a baby. You don't just walk into a stranger's house because they say they want to talk. I know, Samantha whispered. But something about the message feels different.
Her son stirred in his sleep, making a small sound. Samantha glanced at him and felt her entire body soften. She couldn't put him at risk, she knew that, but there was also a tug inside her, an intuition she had learned to trust. "What if she's trying to warn me about something?" Samantha said quietly. Marcus opened his mouth, but closed it again, unable to argue that possibility. A minute passed, thick and heavy. "Okay," he finally said. "If you meet her, I'm going with you. And we meet in a public place. In daylight. No exceptions." Samantha nodded slowly. "I won't go alone." She typed back carefully. "I can meet. Public place. Tomorrow afternoon. Please tell me where." The reply came almost instantly, as if the woman had been staring at the phone waiting. "Thank you. There's a small park by Willow Creek. 4 p.m. I'll be on the bench near the fountain." Samantha took a slow breath and locked her phone. That night, sleep didn't come easily. She lay awake, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the quiet traffic outside, the soft rustling of her baby moving in his blanket. The darkness pressed on her, filled with questions she couldn't answer. Who was this woman really? What did she know? What was she afraid of? And why had she written, "Before it's too late"? By sunrise, Samantha felt emotionally drained but oddly resolute. Whatever happened today, she needed to face it. She couldn't keep running from the shadows of the story. She needed to walk into them to understand just how deep they went. The afternoon arrived slowly. At 3:30, Marcus pulled up outside her building in his car. Samantha strapped her baby into his carrier and climbed in. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked again. "No," Samantha admitted. "But we're going." Traffic was light. The sky was pale blue, streaked with soft clouds, and the early evening light washed the streets in a quiet gold. It felt like the calm before something. She couldn't tell if it was good or bad. Willow Creek Park was small but well kept. Families pushed strollers along the paths. Teenagers tossed a basketball on the court. A small fountain bubbled gently in the center, its water glittering in the sun. It was peaceful. So peaceful, the part of Samantha wondered if she was overreacting. Then she saw her. A woman sat alone on the bench near the fountain. Gray hair pulled into a loose bun, shoulders slightly hunched, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked fragile, like someone holding on to the last thread of strength. She approached slowly, while Marcus stayed a few feet behind, arms crossed, watchful. The woman looked up, and Samantha froze. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she had been crying for hours. She stood shakily. Are you Samantha?" she asked in a quivering voice. "Yes." The woman exhaled, relieved and devastated all at once. "Thank you for coming. I didn't think you would." Samantha nodded, unsure how to begin. "You said it was urgent." It is," she whispered. "My name is Margaret. I'm the mother of Rachel." There was a moment of silence. The breeze picked up, blowing leaves across the pavement. "I'm not here to excuse what she did," Margaret said quickly, voice trembling. "I know it was wrong. I know she hurt you. I watched the video. I saw the look in her eyes. And it scared me." Samantha felt something in her chest loosen slightly. "Then why did you want to meet?" Margaret swallowed hard. "Because you deserve to know the truth, and she won't tell you." Samantha exchanged a glance with Marcus, who stepped a little closer. "What truth?" Samantha asked cautiously. Margaret's hands shook. "Rachel has issues. Serious issues.
She's been struggling for years. Anger problems. She pushes people away, she blames others, she lashes out, she refuses to seek help. Samantha's heart thudded. Is this supposed to excuse her actions? No, Margaret cried desperately. Not at all. Nothing excuses that. Her eyes filled again. But she's getting worse. And now, with this investigation, with the backlash, she's spiraling. Samantha's stomach tightened. Spiraling how? Margaret hesitated, then whispered, She hasn't left her apartment in 2 days. She's not eating. She's talking about how her life is over. She says the whole world hates her. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm afraid she'll do something terrible. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Samantha felt her breath catch. I'm not asking you to drop the charges, Margaret continued quickly, voice trembling. I'm not asking for mercy. I'm asking for humanity, a conversation, a chance for her to face what she did with someone who might help her realize she needs to change. You want me to talk to her? Samantha said slowly. Margaret nodded miserably. She listens to no one, but she keeps watching the video, over and over. I think she's finally seeing herself clearly, and it's breaking her. Samantha felt her knees weaken. Marcus stepped forward. She slapped her, lied about her, filed a false report, and you want Samantha to comfort her? No, Margaret cried, shaking her head. Not comfort, confront. Sometimes shame can be a mirror, and sometimes the only thing that pushes a person towards change is the person they hurt. Samantha's breath trembled. I'm sorry, Margaret whispered. You owe her nothing, but I'm her mother, and I don't want to bury her because she couldn't face what she became. Tears streamed silently down her face. Samantha stood completely still, her son nestled against her chest, feeling the gravity of this moment press down like a weight. The woman's pain was real. The consequences were real. Everything was real. And now the story was shifting again into a territory Samantha had never expected. She closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. She didn't know what she would say. She didn't know how she would feel. But she knew one thing. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a crossroads.
Samantha took a long, trembling breath, holding her baby close. The sunlight sparkled off the fountain water, casting scattered reflections across the pathway. The chatter of park-goers felt distant, almost irrelevant, as her mind grappled with Margaret's words. "You're asking me to do what, exactly?" Samantha said finally, her voice low but steady. "Talk to her? Face her? After what she did?" Margaret shook her head frantically, wringing her hands. "Not just face her, help her see herself. Make her understand she can't go on hurting people. She needs a reality check, and you're the one she hurt most directly. You're the only one who can make her see the gravity of her actions." Samantha's pulse quickened. She couldn't deny it. Margaret was right. Nothing else had worked. Her daughter had lashed out in the restaurant, in public, and continued denying the truth. The video alone hadn't been enough for Rachel to recognize her own cruelty. And now the story was exploding online. Samantha had become the accidental symbol of accountability, but also the target of harassment from Rachel's supporters. Marcus stepped closer, his arm brushing hers. "This is a trap," he said quietly. "Do not forget that." "I know," Samantha said, looking down at her sleeping son. "But she hurt me, and if facing her helps stop her from hurting someone else—" Her voice trailed off. Margaret's face softened. "You don't have to forgive her. You don't have to excuse her. Just speak truth to her.
Let her feel the weight of it, and maybe, just maybe, she'll wake up before it's too late." Samantha nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Okay," she whispered, "but we do it somewhere public, somewhere safe, and Marcus comes with me." Margaret exhaled in relief. "Thank you, truly." The following day, Samantha, Marcus, and her baby arrived at a small cafe downtown, a neutral place with glass walls and light chatter. Margaret had confirmed that Rachel agreed to meet, but the seating was arranged so that neither party could be trapped, an open, monitored space. Samantha slid into the booth, Marcus beside her, and waited. Every second felt longer than the last. She kept her hands clasped over her son's chest, grounding herself, feeling his soft warmth. A few minutes later, Rachel entered. She looked disheveled, pale and tense, as if the previous week had aged her by decades. Her eyes darted nervously across the room before settling on Samantha. The slap, the denials, the lies, all of it seemed to press down in that gaze, and yet there was something else there too. A flicker of fear. Rachel sat across from her mother, Margaret, who squeezed her hand reassuringly, and Samantha felt the strange weight of inevitability. She had a choice in this moment. She could let her anger dominate. She could walk away. She could let the fear of confrontation protect her. But she didn't. "You know why we're here," Samantha said, her voice calm but firm. "You slapped me. You humiliated me in front of your staff, in front of strangers. You attacked me while I was holding my baby." Rachel's eyes flicked down, and she squeezed her hands together, white-knuckled. I didn't mean to." "No," Samantha interrupted, shaking her head. "You did mean to. You made a conscious choice, and you chose to escalate when you could have de-escalated. You chose to let your anger dictate, and for a moment, Samantha saw something crack, the first hint of recognition that she had done something unforgivable. "You've done more than hurt me," Samantha continued, her voice rising just enough to be heard over the cafe's ambient noise. "You've lied, denied, and attacked the truth at every turn. And now the world is watching, and you're scared, and you should be." Rachel's lips trembled, but no words came. "Do you know why your mother is here?" Samantha asked, her gaze sharp. "She's here because she cares. She wants you to face reality before it destroys you. You're panicking because consequences are finally real. You think the world hates you, but it's not the world. It's your actions." Rachel lowered her gaze, blinking rapidly, trying to avoid the weight of Samantha's stare. Her mother's hand rested lightly on hers. "This is your mirror," Samantha said quietly. "You can either look at it, understand it, and change, or you can continue down this path. But I promise you this, if you continue, you will lose more than your job. You will lose your dignity, your credibility, your freedom. And you may even lose yourself." The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. The cafe noises, the light chatter, even the clinking of cups all faded into the background. Rachel's breath caught. I don't know how." "You start by owning it, admitting it, accepting that what you did was wrong, that your anger, your prejudice, your decisions hurt someone else. And then you seek help. You don't wait for it to happen again. You stop it now." Tears streamed down Rachel's face, unsteady and silent. Margaret exhaled, a mixture of relief and sorrow etched across her face. Marcus rested a steadying hand on Samantha's arm. Samantha's gaze softened slightly, though her voice remained firm. "You need to understand this. This is not just about me. This is about every person you could hurt if you don't change. You cannot pretend it doesn't matter." Rachel nodded slowly, barely audible. I understand. I'm sorry." Words mean nothing without action. You've seen what inaction leads to.
You've seen the consequences of your choices. Now you need to live differently. And if you do, you might survive this. If not, Samantha let the words trail, heavy with their full weight. Rachel buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. I understand. Margaret reached across and held her daughter's hands tightly. You've got to follow through this time. You can't run. You can't deny. You have to change. Samantha watched, her chest tight but controlled. For the first time, she felt something shift, not just in Rachel, but in the story itself. The weight of the past week, the humiliation, the fear, the viral attention, it all seemed to converge here, in this moment of fragile honesty. She looked down at her son, still asleep against her chest, and felt a wave of clarity. This confrontation wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about power. It was about accountability, about the possibility of change, about making sure someone's cruelty didn't become someone else's tragedy. And as Samantha stood, Marcus lifting the baby gently, she felt the truth of the moment settle in her bones. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is face what scares you. Sometimes the bravest thing is to confront a person who has hurt you, not to destroy them, but to make them see themselves. And in that moment, as Rachel sat shaking, sobbing quietly, and her mother held her close, Samantha felt a quiet resolve. The story wasn't over, but the path forward, justice, accountability, and real change was finally becoming clear.
The following week felt surreal. News outlets had picked up the story, covering it with the viral video, public outrage, and the subsequent legal actions. Samantha's name was everywhere, not as a celebrity, but as a symbol of courage, of standing up against a blatant injustice. She tried to balance it all while caring for her son, navigating phone calls from journalists, concerned strangers, and advocacy groups who wanted to amplify her voice. Yet, despite the whirlwind, Samantha remained grounded. Marcus stayed close, helping her manage every step. Margaret continued to check in, her presence a complicated mixture of relief, guilt, and hope. And Rachel had entered the legal process quietly, her public statements carefully monitored by her attorney. But privately, she had begun attending anger management and counseling sessions, facing the reality of what she had done in a way that was painful, humbling, and transformative. Samantha sat in the small courtroom, holding her son in a carrier. The gallery was modest but packed with supportive witnesses, including a few people from the restaurant who had previously been silent. The air felt thick with anticipation. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with the gravity of the moment. She knew this day was more than legal proceedings. It was the public acknowledgement of truth, accountability, and the broader consequences of racism and unchecked aggression. When the judge entered, the courtroom hushed. Rachel Knox, pale and fidgety, sat with her attorney. Margaret rested a steadying hand on her daughter's shoulder, but she did not speak. Samantha inhaled deeply and met Rachel's eyes briefly. There was no forgiveness in her gaze, but there was clarity, an unwavering reminder of what had happened. The prosecution outlined the assault, Rachel's unprovoked slap, the racial context, the threats that had followed, and the video evidence that left no doubt. Witnesses testified about Rachel's prior behavior, providing additional context that demonstrated a pattern of discrimination and hostility. The courtroom remained tense, every word heavy with the weight of reality. When it was Samantha's turn to speak, she rose carefully, her voice steady and clear. I am here not just for myself, but for anyone who has ever been humiliated, intimidated, or made to feel lesser because of their race. I am here to say that no one is above accountability. No action, no matter how small, is insignificant when it harms another human being, and no lie can undo the truth. Her words resonated. A few nods rippled through the courtroom. Rachel's eyes glistened with tears, but she did not look away. For the first time, Samantha saw that her words had broken through the walls of denial. The judge's ruling was firm. Rachel Knox was found guilty of assault and fined heavily.
She was required to attend mandatory counseling, complete community service, and write a formal apology, one that would be verified and distributed to the affected parties, including Samantha and others who had witnessed her actions. The judge's remarks were clear. Privilege and anger do not excuse behavior, and the law protects every individual's right to safety and dignity, regardless of race. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, but Samantha moved through the crowd with Marcus and her son. Her statement was concise. Accountability matters. Justice is not about revenge, it's about truth and learning from it. Every person deserves that chance. The crowd reacted with applause, some raising fists in solidarity, others holding signs echoing the words she had spoken. The viral video had sparked a national conversation, but Samantha realized that real change wasn't in clicks or headlines. It was in conversations like these, in courts, in workplaces, and in communities where people learn to recognize bias, privilege, and cruelty. Over the next few weeks, Samantha continued to receive messages from people inspired by her courage. Parents, community organizers, students, and activists shared their stories of racism, oppression, and personal battles. Some wrote about being pushed to speak up for the first time. Some offered their support, others expressed gratitude, saying her bravery had given them strength. Margaret continued to check in on both Samantha and Rachel, navigating the delicate balance between remorse and accountability. Rachel had begun attending regular therapy sessions, confronting years of unresolved anger, prejudice, and insecurity. Samantha followed updates with a cautious eye, understanding that true transformation would take time, discipline, and introspection. But she felt a quiet hope that change, painful, slow, but real, was beginning. The restaurant, meanwhile, had launched an internal overhaul. Mandatory anti-bias training was implemented for all employees, hiring policies were reviewed to prioritize inclusivity, and a formal zero-tolerance stance on harassment and discrimination was publicly announced. Customers and employees reported a notable shift in culture, a direct result of the confrontation and Samantha's insistence on accountability. One afternoon, Samantha sat on her balcony, watching her son crawl across a blanket spread out on the floor. The air was warm, the sun casting long, gentle rays through the cityscape. She reflected on the journey, the SLAP, the viral outrage, the legal battle, the confrontation, and the personal growth forced upon everyone involved. The emotional toll had been enormous, but so had the clarity and strength she had gained. Marcus joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to her and wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "You changed things," he said quietly, "not just for you, but for so many others." Samantha nodded, staring down at her son with a soft smile. "I didn't choose to be in this story, but I chose how I would respond, and that made all the difference." Weeks later, Samantha received a letter from the court confirming that Rachel had completed her community service, counseling, and submitted the formal apology. It was a careful, measured note, but she read every word, recognizing the sincerity beneath the legal language. She knew the road ahead would not be simple. Racism didn't disappear overnight. Anger and prejudice remained deeply entrenched in society. But she had learned the power of standing firm, of documenting truth, of confronting injustice directly and courageously. And she had learned that holding on to her integrity, even in the face of fear, could ripple outward, creating waves that others might ride toward awareness and change. Samantha held her son in her lap that evening, rocking him gently. The city lights flickered outside, reflecting softly in the window. She reflected on the journey, the SLAP, the viral outrage, the legal battle, the confrontation, and the personal growth forced upon everyone involved. The emotional toll had been enormous, but so had the clarity and strength she had gained. Justice had been served in one case, but the larger fight, the fight for equity, respect, and human dignity, was ongoing. She didn't feel triumphant in a conventional sense. She felt something steadier. Clarity, resolve, and the understanding that her voice mattered, her courage mattered, and her actions mattered. And in the quiet hum of her apartment, as her son yawned and curled against her chest, she whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else, "We keep going. We keep standing, we keep speaking, and we keep protecting what is right. The fight against hatred, bias, and cruelty was far from over, but Samantha Hayes had carved a path through it, firm, fearless, and unshakable. She had shown that accountability was possible, that courage could ignite change, and that even in moments of fear and pain, one person's resolute could ripple outward, creating waves that others might ride toward awareness and change. And for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight lift slightly. Not because the world had changed entirely, but because she had. She smiled at her son, the tiny, innocent face full of potential, and whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else, "Your world will be better because of this, I promise." Outside, the city moved on, unaware and bustling. Inside, a quiet victory resonated. The story had reached its climax, and though life would continue with its trials and challenges, Samantha had proven that courage, truth, and integrity could never be silenced.